For most of my life, I never believed the universe was paying attention, until the day I sat crying alone in my car, parked outside a coffee shop in Midtown Atlanta. Through the speakers, a voice from a random podcast echoed the exact words my soul had been silently aching to hear for 27 years. My name is Michael, and this is the story of how manifestation didn't just change my life, it saved it. What happened after I hit play that day was something I could have never predicted. I was living what everyone around me thought was the perfect life. Corporate job at a Fortune 500 company in Buckhead, nice apartment in Virginia Highland, dating Sarah, a beautiful, kind woman who deserved so much better than the lie I was living every single day. The thing is, when you're creating your dream life for everyone else but yourself, the universe has a way of making you feel like you're slowly drowning, even when you're standing on dry land. I'd wake up every morning with this heavy feeling in my chest, like there was something pressing down on my lungs. I'd look in the mirror while brushing my teeth and practice my smile, the one I'd wear to work, the one I'd wear when Sarah talked about our future together, the one that never quite reached my eyes. Your thoughts create your reality, and my thoughts were trapped in a prison I'd built myself, brick by brick, year after year. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Sarah had left a bridal magazine on my coffee table. Not subtle, but she wasn't trying to be. She was 31, ready for the next step, and I was the man she loved. Except I wasn't the man I needed to be. Not for her, not for anyone, not even for myself. I remember staring at that magazine, at the happy couples on the cover, and feeling something inside me just snap. Not in an angry way. More like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long finally giving way. That's when I started Googling things I'd never had the courage to search for before. How to know if you're gay. Coming out as an adult. Late realization sexuality. But what I found instead changed everything. I was scrolling through podcast recommendations when I saw it. Sacred Sexuality, Finding Your Authentic Self Through Spiritual Awakening. The description mentioned LGBTQ+ spirituality and the law of attraction. I'd heard of the law of attraction before. Who hasn't? But I'd always dismissed it as wishful thinking. Something about that moment felt different, though. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was synchronicity. But I downloaded the episode and decided to listen during my lunch break. I drove to Piedmont Park, found a quiet spot, and pressed play. The host, a woman named Alex, had this warm, genuine voice that immediately put me at ease. She was interviewing a guy named David, who shared his story about coming out at 35 and how manifestation had guided him through the process. I spent decades attracting relationships and experiences that weren't aligned with my truth, David said, and the universe kept sending me signs that I was living someone else's life. But I was too scared to listen. I had to pause the podcast. My hands were shaking. This stranger was describing my exact experience. The feeling of being disconnected from my own life. The sense that I was acting in a play where everyone else knew their lines except me. But what David said next made me pull over completely. Vibrational alignment isn't just about attracting things into your life. It's about becoming who you actually are. And sometimes, that means having the courage to let go of who you thought you were supposed to be. I sat in my car in that parking lot for an hour, listening to David describe his journey. How he'd used visualization to imagine conversations with his family. How he'd practiced affirmations about self-love and authenticity. How he'd learned to trust that the universe would support him if he had the courage to be honest. But what struck me most was when he talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work on becoming uncommon. You have to become uncomfortable with being comfortable, David said. That's where the magic happens. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about vibrational alignment and what it meant to live in truth. I thought about all the times I'd felt that heavy feeling in my chest, all the times I'd caught myself looking at men in ways I told myself didn't mean anything. I thought about Sarah sleeping peacefully beside me and how unfair it was to both of us that I was there but not really there. The next few weeks were like living in two different worlds. During the day, I went through the motions of my regular life. But every spare moment, I was listening to podcasts, reading articles, learning about the law of attraction and how your thoughts create your reality. I started small. Abraham Hicks talks about taking the path of least resistance, so I began with tiny acts of authenticity. Instead of agreeing with everything Sarah suggested for our weekend plans, I started expressing my actual preferences. Instead of nodding along when my coworkers made casual homophobic jokes, I started changing the subject or walking away. Each small act felt like taking a deeper breath. I started a gratitude practice, writing down 3 things I was grateful for each morning. At first, it was generic stuff: my health, my job, my family. But gradually, I found myself writing things like, grateful for the courage to question my assumptions, and grateful for the signs that are guiding me toward truth. But the universe wasn't done teaching me yet. 3 weeks after I'd first heard David's story, I was having coffee with my college friend James at a cafe in Little 5 Points. We were talking about work, life, the usual surface-level stuff, when out of nowhere he said, "Mike, can I ask you something personal?" My heart started racing. "Sure. Are you happy? Like, really happy?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I sat there, coffee cup halfway to my lips, and realized I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked me that. Really asked me that. I started, then stopped. The universe is listening, I reminded myself. What if this was one of those signs David had talked about? "I don't know," I said finally. "I think I've been so busy trying to be happy that I forgot to check if I actually was." James nodded slowly. "I came out 5 years ago," he said quietly. "And I remember that feeling, like you're living your life through a fog." I nearly dropped my coffee cup. James laughed at my expression. "Mike, I've known you since freshman year. I've watched you date women and never look quite settled, like you were trying to solve a math problem that didn't have an answer." "I never said I was—" "You don't have to say anything," James interrupted gently. "But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. And if you ever want some recommendations for therapists who specialize in helping people figure this stuff out, I know some good ones." That night, I called in sick to work and spent the day walking around the Atlanta Beltline, thinking. Manifestation isn't just about attracting what you want, I realized. Sometimes it's about attracting the courage to face what you already know. I started working with Dr. Martinez, the therapist James had recommended. She specialized in LGBTQ+ issues and had this gentle way of asking questions that helped me find my own answers instead of giving me hers. "What does authentic feel like in your body?" she asked during our 3rd session. I closed my eyes and tried to remember. "Light," I said finally, "like I could float." "And when do you feel that way?" I thought about it. When I'm listening to those podcasts, when I'm alone in my apartment, not performing for anyone, when I paused, embarrassed. "When you what?" "When I let myself imagine being with a man, not sexually necessarily, just being, holding hands, talking about our day, normal stuff." Dr. Martinez smiled. "That doesn't sound abnormal at all." We worked on visualization exercises. I'd close my eyes and imagine myself having conversations with my parents, with Sarah, with my co-workers. At first, these visualizations were terrifying. I'd picture my dad's disappointment, Sarah's tears, the awkwardness at work. But Abraham Hicks teaches that you can't manifest from a place of fear and lack. So Dr. Martinez helped me reframe these visualizations. Instead of imagining all the ways coming out could go wrong, I started visualizing all the ways it could go right. I saw myself having calm, loving conversations with my parents. I saw Sarah eventually understanding and maybe even being relieved that we could both find partners who were fully present and available. I saw myself walking through the world without that heavy feeling in my chest. Neville Goddard talks about the importance of feeling the wish fulfilled, so I started spending time each day really feeling what it would be like to live as my authentic self. The relief, the freedom, the ability to love someone completely and be loved completely in return. But the universe had one more lesson for me before I was ready. It was a Friday evening in June. Sarah and I were having dinner at this cute restaurant in Inman Park, and she was talking about her friend's wedding the week before. How beautiful it was, how romantic, how she couldn't wait for our turn. I was nodding and smiling, but inside I felt like I was watching the scene from outside my body. This wonderful woman was planning a future with someone who wasn't really there. "Mike?" Sarah's voice pulled me back to the present. "You seem a million miles away lately." "I'm sorry," I said. "Just work stuff." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I love you," she said. "You know that, right? Whatever's going on, we can figure it out together." The kindness in her voice nearly broke me. Here was this amazing person offering me unconditional love, and I was about to hurt her in ways she couldn't imagine. But I also knew that the universe had brought us to this moment for a reason. "Sarah," I started, then stopped. My heart was racing. "What is it?" I looked at her face, open, trusting, beautiful, and realized that keeping her in the dark wasn't protecting her. It was robbing her of the chance to find someone who could love her the way she deserved to be loved. Your thoughts create your reality, and my thoughts had been creating a reality built on deception. It was time to align with truth. "I need to tell you something," I said, "and it's going to change everything." The next hour was one of the hardest of my life. I told Sarah about the podcasts, the therapy, the gradual realization that I'd been living a lie, not just to her, but to myself. I told her about the heavy feeling in my chest, about the signs I'd been ignoring for years, about the courage it had taken to even acknowledge what I was feeling. She cried. I cried. We held each other across that restaurant table while other diners pretended not to notice. But here's what I didn't expect: relief. Both of us felt it. "I knew something was off," Sarah said finally. "I kept thinking it was me, that I wasn't enough somehow. But it was never about me, was it?" "No," I said. "It was never about you. You're incredible. You deserve someone who can be completely present with you. And you deserve to be happy," she said. "Really happy." We stayed friends. It took time, and there were some difficult conversations, but Sarah is still one of the most important people in my life. She's dating someone now who lights up when he talks about her, and seeing them together reminded me why I had to have the courage to tell the truth. Coming out to my parents was next, and that conversation deserves its own story. But I'll say this: the universe had been preparing them too. My mom later told me she'd been praying for months that I'd find the courage to share whatever was weighing on my heart. Mothers know, you know? The work wasn't over after coming out, though. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. I had to learn how to attract authentic connections, how to manifest a romantic relationship when you're starting from scratch at 27, how to rebuild your sense of self when you've spent decades performing a role. I dove deeper into the law of attraction, reading everything I could get my hands on. Louise Hay's work on self-love became my Bible. I learned about quantum manifestation and how our beliefs about ourselves literally shape the reality we experience. But the most powerful practice I discovered was something Dr. Joe Dispenza calls becoming greater than your environment. Instead of waiting for external circumstances to make me feel confident and authentic, I started practicing being confident and authentic regardless of what was happening around me. I joined a gay men's hiking group. I started volunteering for an LGBTQ+ youth organization. I went to Pride for the first time, not as a supportive ally, but as myself. Each step felt like raising my vibration. Each authentic choice made it easier to make the next one. The first time I held hands with a man in public, we were walking through Piedmont Park, the same park where I'd first listened to that podcast that changed my life. His name was Alex, yes, the same name as the podcast host. Synchronicity much? And we'd been dating for 3 months. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in October. The leaves were changing colors, families were having picnics, couples were walking their dogs. Normal Sunday afternoon stuff. Alex reached for my hand as we walked past the lake, and for just a moment, I hesitated. Old programming dies hard. But then I remembered something David had said in that first podcast I'd listened to. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and choosing love anyway. I took Alex's hand. And you know what happened? Nothing. No one stared. No one pointed. The world didn't end. We were just two people in love, walking through a park on a beautiful day. But for me, it was everything. It was the moment I realized that living your authentic truth doesn't just attract better circumstances into your life. It makes you a better person for everyone around you. That heavy feeling in my chest? Gone. The sense that I was acting in someone else's play? Replaced by the deep satisfaction of finally being the star of my own life. I want to share something Abraham Hicks taught me about manifestation. You can't attract what you want until you become vibrationally aligned with who you actually are. For years, I was trying to manifest happiness while denying the most fundamental truth about myself. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while standing next to a machine that's broadcasting interference. You might catch bits and pieces of the signal, but you'll never get clear reception until you turn off the interference. Coming out was me turning off the interference. But here's what I learned that goes beyond just LGBTQ+ experiences. We all have areas of our lives where we're broadcasting interference. Places where we're trying to manifest from a place of fear instead of love. Relationships where we're showing up as who we think we should be instead of who we are. The universe is always conspiring to help us align with our truth. But sometimes that means dismantling the life we built on a foundation of fear and starting over with courage as our cornerstone. It's scary, it's uncomfortable, but it's also where the magic happens. Today, I'm living in a beautiful loft in the old 4th Ward with Alex. We've been together for 8 months now, and every day I wake up grateful for the courage to be honest. With him, with my family, with myself. My relationship with my parents is stronger than it's ever been. They love Alex, and more importantly, they love seeing me genuinely happy. My dad told me recently that he's proud of the courage it took to live my truth, and that conversation healed wounds I didn't even know I was carrying. Sarah is engaged to a wonderful man named David who adores her completely. We had coffee last month, and she thanked me for setting us both free to find real love. I left my corporate job and started my own consulting business. When you're aligned with your truth, opportunities start showing up in ways that seem almost magical. Attracting abundance isn't just about money, it's about creating a life that feels expansive instead of contractive. But the most profound change is internal. I no longer feel like I'm living someone else's life. When I look in the mirror, the person looking back is someone I recognize, someone I respect, someone I'm proud to be. That spiritual awakening I experienced through coming out opened me up to universal laws I'd never understood before. The law of attraction isn't just about getting what you want, it's about becoming who you're meant to be and trusting that the universe will support you in that becoming. I still listen to podcasts about manifestation and the law of attraction. I still practice gratitude every morning. I still do visualization exercises, though now they're about attracting even deeper levels of authenticity and love. But the most powerful practice I've developed is something I call courageous alignment, making choices from love instead of fear, even when those choices are scary. Every time I choose courage over comfort, every time I choose truth over convenience, I feel that vibrational alignment Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. I feel like I'm co-creating with the universe instead of working against it. Coming out taught me that your thoughts create your reality, but more than that, your courage creates your reality. The universe is always listening, always ready to support you in becoming who you're meant to be, but you have to be willing to let go of who you think you're supposed to be first. The power of intention, combined with authentic action, can literally reshape your entire existence. I'm living proof of that. If you're reading this and feeling that heavy sensation in your chest, that sense that you're living someone else's life, I want you to know, the universe is sending you signs. You just have to have the courage to listen. Your authentic self is waiting. The universe is conspiring to help you find the courage to let them out. All you have to do is take the first step. If this story resonated with you, if you believe that courage and authenticity can transform your life, comment below, "I choose courage." And if you're ready to start your own journey of manifestation and authentic living, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-life transformation stories and share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Remember, the universe is listening. What are you ready to manifest?